Caring and Service with Stefan Ozic.
Well, Janet, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's honestly such a pleasure.
Yeah.
Such a pleasure.
Yeah. I've been, as you can see via the video, that she's wearing a Homegrown Primal, and as you can see, the product placement, first real product placement in the podcast yet, so I'm glad it's your product that we're representing and showcasing. But Homegrown Primal, if you could do a little synopsis as to what that actually is.
Homegrown Primal is a supplement company. Well, we call ourselves a food company. We freeze-dry bovine organs, New Zealand grass-fed, for people for health. And we source our organs, their first cross Wagyu from Regenerative farms in New Zealand. So it's pretty exciting.
First cross, what is first?
So the Wagyu.
Yeah.
The Wagyu meat, it's really marbled and it's got a high fat content. Some guys about 20 years ago, New Zealanders who've been in the meat industry for a long time, decided that they wanted to see whether they could get Wagyu cattle growing on grass, because traditionally they're grown on grain in Japan.
Japan, yes.
So they got genetics, and they got the right genetics from Japan, and they crossed it over some dairy cows and also some beef cows in New Zealand, and tested the meat. And they found that the meat that was grass-fed first cross Wagyu was just as marbled, and the fat content was very similar to the fat content that they had on the grain. You know, the marbling. The makeup of the fat was different. It was high in saturated fats, whereas the grain-fed Wagyu is high in polyunsaturated fats. Yeah, so all good for everybody, all the way, all round, because the grass-fed, grass-finished meat is so much better for us.
Yeah, because my awareness with Wagyu beef, like, it's very tasty, but it's not really good for you, because in Kobe, which is where it's from, right? Kobe is usually like the mecca of Wagyu beef, is that right? Yeah. That through their practices and their processes, it's really, these cows are metabolically in absolute disarray, and then we're eating that meat. So it's actually really cool. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I saw Wagyu, but I just thought, oh, you guys source it from overseas.
Yeah.
But that's fascinating to hear.
The meat industry in New Zealand is it's like a leader in its field, because there's been so much research on genetics and feed quality, and most of our farmers are really passionate about keeping their animals on grass. And, you know, we instead of their organs going to pet food, like they have been for the last 30 to 40 years, they're now going into, the majority of them are going into organ freeze-dried organs. And we send our organs, New Zealand sends a lot of organ powders all around the world, because we've got such a clean, green, image. And the farmers are great.
I've found that heavily with the farmers I've met. I've only met a few, but the ones I have met, they are extremely passionate. They tend to care about their animals as if it's their kin. And I think this is a huge disarray, and almost like the ideas with a lot of the vegetarians and vegans whom I respect to an extent, but they seem to they can't really couple together that you have a farmer who's practicing regeneratively and humanely raising his cattle, and he cares about it, but then he slaughters it for food. They can't seem to get their head around that you're doing something so cruel and inhumane. But these farmers are... It's almost hard to fathom as to how much they care and respect for these animals.
There's the two things. There is a unique vibration, this is what I like to say, a vibration from the land in New Zealand that calls people to really respect whatever the land produces, right? And humans have been eating animals since we evolved to standing upright. And so it's part of our psyche that eating animals is really good for us. It's part of our evolutionary trajectory that we need animal meat and fat for optimal health. And so those two aspects of loving the land and the land providing really, really healthy food for us is, it's a key for us to go on in the future to stay optimally healthy with respect to the land. Because if we didn't have the cattle, and this leads on to regenerative farming, which is what is really close to our hearts, is the cattle and the land work together synergistically so that they support each other. So without the cattle, like if we took all the cattle off and we just cropped and grew vegetables, the land would lose its depth of nutrition.
This is where the whole, again, I'm not trying to pounce on vegans, but monocropping, that's where most of vegan products, especially not so much the whole food products, but even then that it's monocropped. And regenerative agriculture is promoting, as you said, that cyclical process, as they're living, the animals and the crops are living synergistically, harmoniously, as nature intended. And
Absolutely.
It's cyclical, whereas you, in the monocropping sphere, you're producing one singular crop, yielding from this plot of land year after year, never rotating, injecting it with chemical inputs, not even giving it any love, spraying, and that creates this disharmony. And with regenerative agriculture, you say that it's cyclical, and I think that's a beautiful way of putting it, and that they're working synergistically. Another beautiful way of putting it. How is it that your products, if you were to say compare it to the US, because a lot of that is the industrial farming complexes?
I don't know whether the US, any supplements in the US come from grain-fed meat. The philosophy around grain-fed, because the industrial farming complex in the States is so ingrained from monocropping and cattle feedlots. A lot of the United States, people in the United States, believe that grain-fed meat is better. But we are, we're leading the way in grass-fed, and the research has shown that grass-fed is so much better for the cattle and for the people and for the land and for the people who are eating the meat. Yeah.
So with your practices being regeneratively processed, where are these farms based? Are they New Zealand, obviously?
Yeah. So the company who we source our organs from have 70 farms up and down New Zealand, and
Great.
they have farm managers who are passionate about regenerative farming and passionate about cattle, and we love that we are supported by this company.
And I think that's the thing that we just got to really hone in on, is that so much of our food, 70% of our food, is grown by peasant farmers. It's globally. And then you come into New Zealand, that fortunately we're not peasants, but so much of our food, whole food, proper food, is from these people that are just passionate. And then yet the other ones that are the suicide rates, the industry in terms of when it comes to getting loans, the banking system, how that's set up, that they're caught in this debt trap. And then these guys, these humans that are just so passionate about growing these.
So there are aspects to New Zealand farming that is just like that. There are people who are really struggling. Across the board right now, there are a lot of people struggling, and they're not necessarily farmers. They're the working class people, the small business owners who are really struggling with this economic climate. So, and, lending money against farms has been really difficult for a lot of farmers in New Zealand. I don't know, I'm really optimistic. I believe that if you've got your hands in the dirt and your feet on the ground and your heart is in the right place, that's my optimism, I guess.
Same boat.
We're in the best country in the world. I remember when I was really young, probably your age, we used to call New Zealand God's own. Wow. And that's it's God's own. This is the land that's abundant and full of resources, and if we treat our pasture lands and our bush with respect, and our rivers and our mountains and all that, and we work again synergistically, then it's abundance that's at our fingertips.
Yeah, so
I'm so optimistic.
but I think I think we should be. It's easy. I think it's kind of easy to be pessimistic. You look at what's happening in the world now, and we're in this complete disarray, metabolically speaking, and mentally. With the mental health epidemic that everyone, especially New Zealand, probably being the worst. I've spoken about this so much on the podcast. What space we're in, and I think it. Well, I don't think, in my heart of hearts, I know that so much of it comes down to what we're feeding our bodies and what we're putting in our bodies.
Yep,
and that's
absolutely.
why when I found out about your company, long story short, well, I'll make it a big story, I can, but Paul Saladino, he's someone that you and I both are aware of. He dubbed himself the carnivore MD, but now he's a bit more, he's kind of shifted his position, which speaks volumes to his personality. I admire people that shift their positions, people that aren't rigid.
Yep.
He changes positions, and I reached out to him on Instagram. He talks massively about the benefits of a carnivore diet and animal-based diet, and now he's more animal-based because he has fruit and he has milk and dairy. And he put me on. I reached out to him like, hey, where can I source your supplements? Because he has a supplement company, and he's the one that pointed me to you, which I thought that's pretty cool.
I think I reached out to him too via email, and after I heard that from you, and he didn't reply to me. But I will chase him again, I think. I think
it was him.
Important.
Yeah.
So I think we all need to stand shoulder to shoulder together, especially in our health industry, because of the mental health epidemic.
Yeah.
And there's not enough people talking about how easy it is to change your diet and support everything in the body, absolutely everything, and mental health. And it's just so tragic to see people not coping with life, whereas we get one chance at this, and unless you believe in reincarnation, we get one chance at life. And how cool would it be that everybody felt joyful in their body and abundant and calm in their body,
to find that joy, that bliss. And I've been using your stuff now 2 years. That's the reason I've got you on this on this platform on my podcast. Is the value has just been, it's pretty hard. Like when I started, I was very animal based. I was pretty strict, but I'll deviate so often. And now in the last 6 months, I've been like probably the most strictest I've ever been in my life. And that's not so, I don't want to say the word strict because it creates confinement. I've been so much more obsessed with vitality and just abundant health, and having these products. I don't use Mojo, but this product here I use every day. I'd love to talk. I want to go down the rabbit hole with a lot of the supplements too. But this Manpower one, which contains bovine testicles, when I started taking it, I was telling friends, I'm like, I eat bulls pretty much daily. But yeah, so that process for me of being aware and becoming aware of your brand, and that's something that's overlooked now. And I'll talk about it. You said the hunter-gatherer times where that was the sole source of nutrition, was the organs. The meat was eaten, but it was always the organs that were so revered. So for you, how did you become aware, and what was your reasoning for starting this brand, and how did you kind of start into that?
I've been blessed with a fit, healthy body most of my life, and I've done lots of different types of diets, like the raw diet, and I went vegetarian for I think 6 months, and it couldn't cope with that at all.
Raw diet being
just raw veggies. I was like, oh. But you have to, I think life is a journey, right? So you've got to experience these things. We were keto for a long time. Both Martin and I've been very active in the fitness industry. Martin, my partner, was...
who's in the room, by the way?
He's in the room, he's over
welcome.
there.
Welcome,
he had
Martin.
eye surgery yesterday, so he's got his glasses on. He was a competitive cyclist for years.
Oh, wow.
And did was it the 5 passes you did? Yeah.
Whoa.
In New Zealand, which is sort of up there as far as extreme
the
cycling goes.
The outdoors of New Zealand.
Yeah.
Times 5.
And I'd always been in the fitness industry, used to teach aerobics classes, and was a personal trainer for a long time. And so diet was really important to me. We decided to go low carb. And that was... just obviously breaking it down, like what made that decision? I think because I always had low-grade fatigue, always. I was like dragging myself. I think when I turned 50, I was dragging myself around, and it's like, I just
So was
don't
at
have
that
that
point-
energy.
so
Yeah,
was
I
at that
don't have
point-
the energy. And I think I was
Wow.
probably launching into menopause at that point as well. And so low carb keto was good for us. Martin was still really hard to feed. He used to eat so much food and not put on any weight. And I would eat moderately and not lose any, so we were battling that. And then friends of ours found the carnivore diet somehow, and we spent Christmas with them in Queenstown and just went totally carnivore. And I think it was probably a couple of days into it, I felt different. I felt like my body was starting to really enjoy this nutrition. It was amazing. And so, I don't know, we kind of stuck with it. We made the commitment to do it. And then, we haven't really looked back. Martin put on 10 kilos of muscle, just like that, and stopped being hungry and hypoglycemic. And I lost it and lost body fat and got my brain back. Like, my brain is sharp, and I feel very present.
What did you take from that? I guess, this is...
I think what happens when people change their paradigm of thinking, their paradigm, it's often stimulated by religion's coming to mind, like a faith of some sort or a diet. And people change their diets and they get religious about it. And that's what happened to me. I got really dogmatic about the carnivore diet being the best thing ever, and because it had changed me, and I was feeling really good about it. And so then I started going down the research channel and finding people like Saladino and Sean Baker and Zoe Clements from Hungary, and there's lots of people in space. And Paul Mason in Australia is a massive researcher. And so we both Marty and I just used to spend hours reading research papers and listening to podcasts and reading books about it. And it just feels so right for us to live this way now. We decided that we needed to start, with the literature, we needed to start incorporating organs into our diet because of the nutrient density of them. And couldn't find, you can find liver in the pet food, liver and heart in the pet food aisles of the supermarket. And so I think as our understanding around food goes, most people choose meat cuts that are really easy to cook. And I know that my grandparents used to cook organs, but the organs have disappeared out of our diet. I suppose they're slowly coming back now because it's quite trendy. But I don't know, 6 years ago, organs were nowhere to be found. Yeah. So we met a woman. I did some research, and we met a woman who has a freeze drying lab in the Wairarapa, and she
South Island
in the North Island, North Island, and she took me under her wing and gave me some really interesting information around freeze drying. We bought 10 kilos of liver powder from her.
Wow!
And said, well, we'll just encapsulate it. We got some labels made, and we decided that if it didn't sell, we'd have a lifetime supply of liver powder. But it kind of took off. That's how Homegrown Primal started. It started on an inquiry around how do we get organs every day, how do we make it easy, and it just grew from there. It was pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's been the case for me, because I must admit I'm at a point where I'm like, I had organs, grandparents, and even my dad. Chicken liver was a real one that I tended to have often, even sometimes heart, and I just, pate.
I love chicken livers.
Yeah. And then I'm trying to go further into having it in its whole matrix, but for me, this has been such a good introduction. and just for the person that, you know, doesn't like the taste at all or doesn't want to know what they're eating, that these supplements have such a value there. And it's kind of like, this has become my daily vitamin, these supplements.
You don't need anything else because they're so dense with everything that you need, especially liver. Like liver needs to be had every day in a small amount so that it gives you a foundation of health, a platform that you can springboard from. You can add more things to it, but confidence that you're having exactly the right amount of vitamins and minerals every day to be optimal.
And I think this is something that's also not understood, is that the amount of organs you need to get their nutritional benefit is so little because they're so dense.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Where do you think and why do you think we have, I guess it's becoming more prevalent now, eating organs, but where do you think that kind of shift happened? Because when it comes to eating meat, all we think of is just the muscle meats, the Scotch cuts, you know, the sirloin cuts, et cetera, et cetera. Where do you kind of think that deviation happened?
When? The organs?
Yeah.
It's recent. I think it's really recent. Because the carnivore diet...
No, sorry. Where we stopped having it. Well, saying that it's becoming...
historically.
Yeah, it's kind of becoming more prevalent now.
Yeah.
Organs, as you said, with, you know, different diet fads, but I think people are becoming more aware. But there was just this gap where it was only really recent for me where it's become more prevalent because it's becoming more prevalent.
You think about your great-grandparents and my grandparents, and that era. My grandmother was born in 1917, so she grew up when farming was like really important. You know, you'd go to the butcher and get your meat and your organs, and it was cooking the organs was really familiar for them. That's what they did. It was sort of part of the homesteading of having an animal on the farm and killing it for the family to eat. And so they never wasted anything. You know, they cured the hides, and that's one thing that the company that we use get our organs from, they use every part of the animal. They actually sell their hides as well for leather and mats for the floor, and it's amazing. So they're coming. So I like to call it homesteading. It's traditional ways of dealing with our livestock, so that nothing is wasted. Even the bones were boiled down for bone broth and for cooking for stocks for cooking, and all those old traditions of preserving have gone as well. You know, they're getting them back now.
Yeah. Well, especially those that are wanting to pay attention to it, and hopefully now the listeners, they'll start asking these questions and investigating, and you'll probably start to know that there's a whole like sub community, and I think people are becoming more aware to it. And you in your branding, you say nose to tail. This is sort of the moniker of that way of, you know, you don't need to say carnivore, but hey, nose to tail eating, the benefit of it.
Yeah.
Can you talk to that a bit?
Yeah, nose to tail. We used to, that was the description of how we saw the homesteaders. You know, they'd eat every part of the animal. And because historically, evolutionarily, we have eaten every part of the animal. We've used their skins for warmth. And nothing's like, why would you waste anything so precious? And that's where I guess that's where the nose to tail thing came from.
So your carnivore journey, did that, when you started noticing all these difference and you started using that liver, like where did it kind of go from there? What was the timeline from that point once you got those livers? Were you having organs prior to that, or was it when you became aware of needing?
Awareness. It was awareness, yeah. So we used to just buy liver, beef liver and sheep liver, and have that probably once or twice a week. I love beef tongue. My grandmother used to cook beef tongue, so traditionally a lot of the butchers will cure the beef tongue, so it's like pickled like corned beef. They'll put a cure in it. So you have to ask the butcher for an uncured beef tongue, and then just slow cook it. And we would sit and have one whole tongue for lunch because it tasted so yummy. They're really high fat, and once they're cooked, they just fall off the...
Never had it.
It's really good. It's really good. And, the tails, I always have the tails. So we started buying half a beast, and when you buy half a beast, you can ask for all the organs, for the tail, for the tongue, and one of the ones that we bought was off a friend of ours who lives in Methven. So I went and was there when the animal was slaughtered and got the kidney fat out of the carcass. And I'm a country girl at heart, so I'm not squeamish when it comes to killing animals. And it was really... It was cool. It was cool watching the whole process. And this guy was just so adept with his knife, and he did it really quickly.
And that's kind of sort of how it began. And then so the livers, they popped off. And then how did you sort of progress your range? And
with our...
Yeah.
Okay, so we started with the liver powder, and the woman who we met with her own freeze-drying lab had already had some brain powdered and encapsulated. So we started with a little bit of ignition, which is this one here, which is just the brain. And
bovine brain or...
Bovine brain. Yeah, so it's freeze-dried brain, and they take the pineal and the pituitary gland out of it, because pineal gland is quite expensive, so that goes somewhere else. So and it's quite dense. So this is just the brain, all of the brain, except for the glands. And I started taking it as well when she said, look, I've got these little pots. They had 50 capsules in them. And so we sold it as a part of our range, and I started taking it. It's freaking amazing. Like, I take it every day. And this has contributed to my brain, my sharpness of my brain, and so they're quite light.
Yes,
they're not
I
like
see.
the liver.
For those listening, we're opening up one of the capsules. It's an orange. Oh, it's like a tan light.
Yeah, it's right. It's really tan.
Yeah, I wish those listening could see. It's kind of what I like about the supplementation is it's encapsulated in collagen.
Bovine collagen.
Bovine collagen. So the whole supplement, the whole food itself is all from the animal.
Yeah, and there's nothing else in it. There's no flow agents or
anti-caking agents.
Yeah, or fillers. This is just brain. Like, this is brain, and Western Price talks about like supports like.
Yes.
So the corresponding organ is eaten to support the organ in the body. And I know it sounds a bit witchy poo, but my experience, it really works. It's worked for me, and it's worked for you, and it's worked for many other people who have been using freeze-dried organs across the world.
Yeah, you bring up such an amazing point, and this was also in my journey of becoming more involved with the organ supplementation and just consuming organs, trying to more often, is exactly that. Is it the cell composition from an animal that you're intaking? So whether it be the brain in this example, you're taking that brain cell because you're literally consuming the cells, and when your body consumes that, your body's not going to want to spend more energy to try to process it and utilize it in another area. It's probably going to be like, oh, this is a brain cell, so I'm going to best target and support this to the brain. That's what you're saying when you say that, like, supports like.
I always say it's mammalian tissue, and we're mammals. And so our body doesn't have to go through a number of processes to find the goodness out of this product.
Yes.
A lot of people will eat nuts for brain health. I think I've heard that the walnut, because it looks like a brain, is good for the brain. But if you think about a nut and you think about the oils in it and the fact that it's open to oxidation and the fibre, the body has to digest it and go through the different processes it does to find the goodness out of it. Whereas the goodness is right there. It doesn't have, it's there, and it's available pretty much instantaneously to support. And I know that there was a few studies where they called, and I can't quote studies, the isotope studies with specific tissue in the body, and they've followed it through the body where it goes. And the brain is one example of the brain tissue going into the brain and supporting myelin sheaths and neurons. It's woo-woo, but it's good. That's what I like.
I think so much of that comes across as woo, because I'm seen sometimes as a freak with all this, so I'm glad that it's when you start to investigate and look into it real open-mindedly, without your prejudices and without your biases, which we all have. If you just kind of get out of it, get out of your own way in that investigation, that you're kind of like, well, it makes sense.
Yep.
Like you're taking in this food, you would think, you know, the adage, you are what you eat, and this is so true.
Absolutely. We there's a lot of studies on the soma, which is the body.
Yes,
you know,
soma.
we in these bodies, we're animals. We've got a consciousness, but we are animals, and looking after this body is really crucial if we want to have a long life. We're not plants, we're animals, and if we feed ourselves with animal tissue, it works. You know, it works for support, and yeah, I think that's it for that.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole.
I can preach about it. Like I've really.
That's something I was going to ask. But continue.
No, you go.
Yeah, you preach about it, because you brought up a good point. That it can come across as this almost like a religion. Being an evangelist. Well, to be fair, I think being an evangelist is okay if your intentions aren't ill and you're seeing someone else as the other, but because you're in this game. Well, I don't want to call it a game. This industry where you are giving these products, and you're primarily animal based. You sometimes find it's hard when you're kind of becoming that preacher. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. I've been in the fitness industry, and also I'm a bit of a yogi, so I practice Kundalini yoga.
That explains it.
And being around a lot of people who are kind of interested in personal growth and well-being and spirituality, and historically they've all, I think, because our yogic philosophies have come from the East and come out of India, where, you know, traditionally it's always been vegetarian. Yes. You know, and to be a super spiritual person, you can't eat meat, you have to be vegetarian. That's the dogma that came with yoga. There are a lot of people who are yogis who are now going to animal-based because they've been really unhealthy, because following the vegetarian vegan path, because it's deemed to be spiritual, gets me closer to God or whatever, is really has been detrimental to their bodies. I'm not saying that a lot of yoga. There are people who are vegetarian who you know find it really a beautiful way to live, and
they seem like they're thriving too. To be fair,
and you know, everyone finds their own path.
Yeah.
And I remember one person said to me, "How can you justify your spirituality when you're eating meat?" And I thought that was a really good question, because, you know, we have come out of seeing spirituality as being closer to God and having just vegetables and being a vegetarian or a vegan. Go back 1,000 years and maybe take the Vikings, for example. The Vikings were incredibly spiritual people, and they thrived on meat. I think we have lost our spirituality through the West versus the East. You know, the Western mystics. What did they eat? Were they on the land? Were they farmers? Were they peasants? Did they rely on meat and organs for health? And they were mystics. So we lost our Western mystics when the Eastern mystical traditions came into the West, and the Eastern mystical traditions brought in with them their vegetarianism and their veganism, And so it's like West meeting East. So we've lost our, in the spirituality realms, we've lost our connection to the land. That's what I'm saying. Because the Eastern traditions came in, brought in their yoga and brought in their chanting.
Yes.
I believe now that we are, through our diet, like I said earlier, I think diet is part of changing people's paradigms. Through our diet and our spiritual practices, we're finding more of a balance. We're finding that we can commune with God and nature and have meat and organs in our bellies. Because we're thriving, our bodies are feeling alive, and we're feeling full of life, and we've got that vitality, and it's all about what goes in our mouths.
Yeah. And if you are a conveyor of God and God's message and that energy, that love, God would probably want that person spreading that message to be vibrant, healthy, vital.
Yep.
You share that example, and that exactly happened to me because I did a yoga teacher's training course in 2022. I've been going down exploring that path for a while, and in the course it was all vegan, all vegetarian, and within probably a week or two, sullen, fatigued, tired, not so much irritable, but I just felt a bit impatient. And then I remember one of the girls, an Indian girl, she's like, "Stefan, you look so weak. You look so tired." And I'm like, "Yeah, I fucking need something." But I didn't, since I didn't want to fully deviate from going all in because I need just some meat. But then I was like, "Nah, I'll just get creatine." It was a vegan, so it was synthetic vegan creatine. Hey, it was enough. It was still vegan. I just started having eggs, and that alone, those two shifts alone, and I got protein powder too. I just needed more protein. Vegan again. I wanted to still try to stay within the bounds of what was expected of us as the practitioners and the students. So I still stuck within the rules somewhat, but eggs was probably the most, which I think is the most nutrient dense food on the planet. I had that, and that alone just shifted me massively. And in my experience, being in those crowds, those hyper spiritual folks, without being judgmental, I think there's a degree of narcissism that comes up, and that's been my experience. And I kind of shifted it off as narcs and knowing they know themselves, and it's like, nah, there's this degree, without picking on them too much, but I always couldn't reconcile the fact that you are on this path, but they always had to be vegan or vegetarian. None of them ate meat. And then now, as I'm on my path now, meat's a staple, and I'm still practicing and teaching yoga, but I'm not coming from that place, but I'm feeling like I am more vital. I'm more grounded when I'm teaching, and I'm not trying to convolute the message through yoga, because end of the day, yoga is about union, and it's quite holistic and integrative. But why are we too quick? Like, where is that dogma? You say dogma, and I agree. Where's that dogma coming from? Why not investigate that more? That if you have an animal, if you believe in reincarnation, you're gonna reincarnate as a tiger or a lion because you've eaten flesh like a ravenous animal. It's I
think it goes deeper than that. I think it's our philosophies, our societal philosophies that have come and our religious philosophies that have come through the West and through the East. I really believe it's Christianity, and like I'm not a philosopher, but I believe that Christianity put its mark on human evolution way back, and silenced a lot of different voices, and now the voices are coming alive again. And I'm really excited about that. I think, we are more than our bodies. We are animals, but we've got consciousness, and we've got the ability to connect to life a whole lot more, and connect to each other a whole lot more. And again, if we're thriving in our bodies, and we're happy, and we've got life bubbling up inside us, which you have and I have, I think this is where we're turning to each other, supporting each other, and creating community. And it's life is really exciting right now, and people are are coming together a whole lot more.
In the eye of the storm, there's so much light and I think we are, and like, obviously I didn't experience what the 80s was like, but, or even the early 1900s, 1800s, shit. But if you think about what we have at our disposal now, we're in a freaking awesome time. You can speak more to this because you've experienced this life longer. You're wiser, yeah. It's all, and the thing that I love about this conversation already is it's not just like one thing. It's a series of systems. We're talking to many things because they're all necessary and involved.
Yep. Paul Saladino talks about the remembering, and he understands, and so many more people are understanding that, you know, we've come from a vibrant past, an animal that hunted on the plains and needed each other to hunt together, and needed each other for warmth, and community was really at the centre. And as humans have evolved through the different revolutions, the agricultural and industrial, we've become individuals and separate from the life that we have when we're together as a group of people. And I'm excited that this, as we all, you know, as the years go now and we're heading towards 2030, I'm excited that these are the lessons that we're learning, and that we are going to be more reliant on each other and the land for sustenance and life.
It's like the 1930s was that divergence, that separation, and now we're coming into the 2030s. It's going to be like, no, we actually need to come back. I think
interesting. If humans can stop killing each other, I think that's going to be a good sign.
We'll be on the right path.
So
you brought it up earlier. I want to talk to this because I think it's so important, is the idea of finished grass fed. And then you look, let's go back to the US. A lot of it is grain fed, grass finished, or only grain fed, grain finished. Can you kind of talk to that and the differentials there, and like what's happening there? And also why New Zealand's beef is so freaking good. Is it for that reason? Few questions.
I think it is definitely is. We've only got one feedlot in the South Island, and most of that meat goes to the States for burgers. I just, you know, if you think about the cows as an animal, they are so much healthier in their own environment. Like animals that are in their own natural environment are going to be healthier if they're fed. And I guess if you look at humans who are fed grains, we are just exploding in our size, and our health is deteriorating. And when we're like that, we rely on big pharma to keep us keep us alive. And that's what they do with the cattle on the feedlots. They feed them grain, they inject them to keep them healthy, because they're not on grass, they're on bare ground. And it's, I don't know, the feedlots are creating diabetic cattle. Who wants to eat an animal that's not healthy? Can imagine that. Think back to when humans were cavemen. I don't know whether they would have eaten a sick animal. What happens to the fat profile with an animal that's just eating grain? Their fat becomes, you know how I talk about saturated fat, how important it is. It has a product in it called stearic acid, which is a carbon molecule which fires up our mitochondria. And that's why so many people are getting benefits out of our Kiwi Burn product, because it's fat, it's the right fat for our human bodies.
Beef tallow, correct?
Beef tallow, yeah. A feedlot cattle beast has more polyunsaturated fat in its meat because it's not healthy, because it's been fed grain and not grass. That's the difference. And that's why New Zealand farmers growing their cattle on grass are the best farmers in the world.
That's probably the big reason why we got some of the best livestock in the world. And I can't help but think it must be with the us being such a smaller land mass, is that the soil composition being still so young in terms of like human inputs, being like the tilling, obviously with the pesticides, herbicides, all the chemical inputs and sprays and whatnot. I can't help but think that. But then that's also another thing too, that's also very ubiquitous in New Zealand, is glyphosate. We're one of the largest users of glyphosate. So in that regenerative agriculture picture, generally speaking, that stuff is out of the equation,
It's
correct?
not there.
Yeah,
it's
it
not
doesn't
there at
even
all.
exist. Yeah.
I cringe when I'm driving through the cities and I see the council workers
Oh my
spraying
gosh.
glyphosate
Yeah.
all over the curbs, and yes,
Yeah.
and they still advertise
Yeah.
Roundup and glyphosate as a spray. That's another topic.
Yeah.
Regenerative farming is the way of the future to re-establish the humus layer in the soil, re-establish the nutrients in the soil, and it works with cattle. There's a guy called Alan Savory who is South African. Most of our regenerative farming is based on his model, and that is high dense herds moved on a lot through the day. We met a guy called Greg Hart who owns Mangarara, which is a farm in the Hawke's Bay. He farms regeneratively. He doesn't have any fossil fuels on his farm at all.
Wow.
He's a really interesting guy. So he mob stocks, and this is the philosophy behind it. You mob a piece of land, and then you move it on.
What is mob?
So a lot of cattle in a small area, in a small area, and he moves his cows 3 to 4 times a day.
Wow.
So the idea is they prune the grass, they prune the long grass. So they go into a paddock that's long, they prune the long grass, and they trample it, and they poo and wee on it, and then they leave. And so what happens to the soil profile is it's got grass that's been pushed over, it's got fertilizer, natural fertilizer on it, and when the grass is pushed over, it's left, and it creates, it decomposes, so it gives back to the land the nutrients that it's taken out. And I don't know whether you've ever seen a paddock that's been rolled with the grass poking through the dead grass on top.
I think I know
That's
what you're talking
happens.
about.
Yeah. So with regenerative farming, they're recreating the humus layer.
I see.
It comes back into the soil, and the grass just grows through it.
I think what's so amazing about this whole thing with regenerative agriculture is that where a lot of the arguments with carbon and carbon emissions, a lot of the fingers being pointed at livestock, cattle, because they
It's the
fart methane. It's the farting, which is kind of comedic, where it accounts to 1% of the carbon emissions in the world. I actually read this paper, and it fascinated me. I'm like, wait, why is 1% of that being so just attacked?
Yep.
And then I investigated further, and the amazing thing about regenerative agriculture is that what you're stating with that rotation and with that creating that pumice layer, that when that soil's in that quality, it's carbon sequestering. So it actually draws in carbon.
Yep.
So you've got these farms that are like negative carbon emissions.
That's Mangarara. He's carbon negative.
What was his name? The
His
guy
name's
that
Greg
knew
Hart.
Alan Savory. Yeah.
And
I
Alan
rings a
Savory.
bell.
Greg Hart.
Glenn.
He's a loud voice in the space in New
Okay.
Zealand.
Check him out.
He's a real advocate.
Glenn Hart.
Greg.
Oh, Greg.
Yeah.
Oh, he's quite well. He's
He's a
like,
dude, man. He's just such a nice man. We spent the day there a couple of years ago and learned
He'll be
about
cool
it.
to talk to.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
Yeah, nice. Hard case.
Yeah,
Imagine
and
he's hard
you know,
case.
he's not the only one. He's there's a lot of people. There's a guy called John O'Frew in the South Island who started a movement called Quorum Sense, and that is a platform for supporting farmers who transition into regenerative agriculture. And Jono's he's a beautiful man with a good voice for supporting regenerative agriculture in New Zealand. There's some big farms in the South Island that are practicing regen ag, and that's no-till. They as soon as you open the soil up,
Yeah, talk about that.
the carbon is lost. So every time you dig the garden, till a paddock for a grain or a crop, you're opening, the carbon's releasing into the atmosphere.
And by tilling, for those that don't know, you're literally like hoeing. You're grabbing, say, the head of a spade, or even imagine your hand, you're coming through, scooping your hand into that soil and pulling it up, lifting up all that soil, breaking
exposing it to the
disrupting
oxygen.
it. And the sun, correct? That usually tends to...
With a lot of the regenerative agricultural practices, they direct drill. So it's good to
what, sorry?
They direct drill. So say, visualize you've got a paddock of green grass.
Yeah.
And you want to transition to regenerative agriculture. Part of the pasture profile is that it has lots of different grasses in it. So it's got chicory and different clovers and other grasses that give the animal a cross section, that they're not just eating one specific grass. So what the farmers do is they direct drill across the paddock without turning it over. So they just put the seeds in, and so the next year they get a variety of grasses in the paddock.
I see. And then does this kind of come under the similar as like cover cropping and whatnot?
Yeah, I think that's another word for it.
Yeah, because I'm on my vineyard, unfortunately, they use glyphosate. I refuse. That's a whole other thing. But we're looking at cover cropping, because at least then you're kind of giving something back to the monocrop, because a vineyard is in a way a monocrop. You're at least giving that variety and that
protection for the plants that are coming up underneath.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's something also very prevalent in the wine industry in New Zealand, because we're one of the largest in the world, especially in export, and a big part of the usual practices is glyphosate and these chemical inputs. I think that comes a lot to do with the mentality and the psychology of a lot of those farmers. That's kind of what they knew back then. It was so prevalent using these sorts of inputs.
I don't think they knew the dangers.
Nah, they didn't.
Of it.
Absolutely not. And
so, fun fact, one of the biggest contributors to Parkinson's disease is exposure to industrial sprays.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I'm
and
not
Parkinson's
surprised.
is big here in New Zealand. It's
huge.
Yeah.
Found out it was during the COVID time when I was just researching public health that New Zealand is one of the highest rates of cancer per capita in the world. It goes Australia than the US. And I can't. And that wasn't skin cancer. That was just cancer. Just said cancer in general, not specific to skin cancer. So again, I think that's a huge thing too. And with us being such a small landmass, that it's probably got to do with the fact that it's so concentrated in there. It is still so heavily used, these glyphosates. And I think with what you guys are doing, it's so important. And I kind of want to go down that a bit too, with talking about your product specifically. But you're going to say something?
I was just going to say, all the more reason to eat animals that have been farmed regeneratively.
Yeah.
And so that we can be confident that we're not having any sprays in our food.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just need to be a loud voice. Education is really key for people's health. And most people do what they've always done.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's kind of why I thought it was vital, because I'm a practitioner and user of your product and of what you're sharing of this way of eating. And it makes sense. This whole podcast is about interviewing and speaking with people that are living intentional lives, lives that where they're wanting to not only have themselves be their best versions, but allow their families, their spouses, their friends to be their best versions. It's so important. That's why it's called living in service, because
I love that.
That's a whole
I think intentional living is really, really important. Like having a daily practice, making sure that you're feeding yourself properly. Well, I was really interesting. We've got a friend staying at the moment, and people know that we just eat meat. And we were sitting around last night for dinner, and Jason just cooked himself. He just sat down with a big plate of steak. And I'm like, you're not having any vegetables with that? He said, no, I'm just sticking with the meat tonight. And that was really cool. So even, you know, just living with us and seeing how we live is very, it kind of seeps into other people's lives.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
like that.
So what? So like, come Christmas, like you eat fruit? Do you eat fruit?
I generally eat fruit off a tree in the garden.
Yes.
I don't like buying it because, again,
of course,
you know, you don't know its history, that we use a lot of sprays in our fruit industry.
So like, just for people will be like, what? So like, you never like have a piece of cake and like you're.
I'm a bit of a carbaholic, so I know that when
nice.
I
Same.
start, I can't stop.
Like pasta or a pizza, I can. I'm already a pit as it is. I can just eat so much, but yeah. If there's a pizza in front of me, or a bag of chips.
I don't like pizza.
Yeah.
I'm a bit partial to. What am I partial to? What did you say? A bag of chips? Oh.
Proper crisps.
Yeah, no, I don't like those either.
Oh wow.
I like
chocolate.
Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, chocolate. Well, you can get that. You're lucky there because there's stuff that's like.
That's not a sprayed fruit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've got where we're living at the moment. There's a fig tree. It's huge.
Yeah.
And the figs are just ripening.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
I've got
just
some
amazing.
in the vineyard currently.
Yeah. And again, fruit's good for you. You know, fruits. Saladino talks about eating fruit that's grown in your area, and I love preaching eat local.
Yeah.
So when we lived in Christchurch, we had pear trees and plums and peach trees, and I'd just go and pick one or two.
Amazing.
I'm not a big fruit eater because I know that
Yeah.
there's dangers in spiking your insulin a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another conversation.
Yeah, I've had a nutritionist on as well, and Dr. Grant Schofield. Are you aware? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I've had him on, and we spoke. We went deep down the rabbit hole on insulin. So guys listening, you probably definitely want to watch that. But yeah, so particularly with the products, I'd love to kind of go through, because obviously you've got a full range, like. What does what and what you would recommend, and
we talked about
from
you
there.
taking manpower.
Yes.
So we've also got a woman's one which has got ovaries and uterine tissue, spleen and mammary in it.
Yeah, wow.
And I get a lot of people saying how much estrogen is in it or how much testosterone is in the product that we've got. My answer is, one, it's very hard to test for, and two is if you're supporting the organ or the gland in your own body, you're supporting this part of you to create the right amount. Yeah. So if you're lacking in testosterone and you eat balls, you're going to get your testosterone creators in your body, whether it's your testicles and your pineal gland. I think they're the only two. Are going to stimulate your testosterone growth. So same with the woman's product. I kind of started with Mojo because I had
the woman's one.
Yeah,
right?
I had a lot of women with perimenopausal symptoms like hot flushes, and it's like going through the changes for women in their late 40s, early 50s. It's kind of fraught with a lot of historical stories around it's a sickness, like we're heading into menopause, and it's a bad time, and most women don't cope with it, and there's hot flushes and there's mood swings, and I went, okay, so what can I offer apart from the conversation around it? It's a normal, natural thing to do. How can I is there something that I can do to support women through that? And that's where Mojo came in, and so many women. It's really so heartening to hear the emails and the reviews that I get from this product. Women who have been trying to get pregnant, suddenly they're supporting themselves nutritionally and they conceive.
Wow.
Women who are heading into menopause with perimenopausal symptoms, who are have mood swings, who have hot sweats, taking Mojo and making a difference. these symptoms, their body seems to relax and these symptoms reduce. And that's cool. That's really cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then you've just released this new one.
Colostrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This vital nutrient.
Oh my God, I never realised how important colostrum was.
It's in mother's breast milk, right?
Mother's
it's
breast
like
milk.
one of the most vital components to a child being breastfed that they are gaining from the mother.
And again, it's mammalian, so it's all good. One of the papers that I've posted on the products page on the website, and I encourage everyone to get into that paper if they're interested in colostrum.
It's a powder?
It's a powder, yeah.
Wow.
I've learned a lot over the last couple of months researching this product. The human baby in utero gets all the essential nutrients, immunoglobulins, growth factors through the placenta in utero in a human body, a human baby. Cows don't. So they get it when they're born and they get the first milk. Yeah. So that bovine colostrum is so dense in so many important things that we need to, that the calf needs to start the new life, right? It's also incredibly beneficial for humans. It helps the gut create a mucosal layer. Yep. So, and there's been studies with people who have got celiac disease taking the colostrum and easing their symptoms. It's antimicrobial, so it encourages the right bacteria into the gut.
It's amazing.
It's just like, oh my goodness, it's a blessing to have this in our
It's a blessing to
product
have
range.
you and your guys' products, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
It's,
thank you.
What's amazing too about that synergistic relationship, we're talking about soil health, right? In that soil, there's a microbiome, and that's what's gonna create the nutrients that the plant uptakes, or the animal that consumes the plants uptakes and absorbs into their body, which we consume. Similarly, with you mentioned the microbiome, the gut bacteria in our gut. Again, I've spoken about this before, and a lot of you have probably heard about it, the microbiome and the importance of it internally. And that mucosal layer is basically, you could say it's essentially the barrier from the external world and the internal world. So if that's lacking integrity, that's what's going to cause, and this is being researched and investigated in the literature currently, is that's what's going to cause most of your ailments, whether that be eczema, whether that be IBS. It's just the full spiel. Endless.
Mental health
as
well. There's so much more research now on mental health and gut. They're linked terribly in the bad way, if you have got reactions to food, especially plants that are high in oxalic acid and lectins and gluten. Anything, if you're finding that you're reacting to even gluten, that is your body saying, I've got a leaky gut with this product. I just recently heard about a woman who has been getting migraines, and she gets migraines after she eats gluten. So that is, the vagus nerve goes from the brain to the gut, and if we're not looking after our guts, if we're not eating properly, we're in line for some serious mental issues as well.
Because about the gut too is that 80% of the serotonin that our body makes up comes from the gut, and it's like, what the fuck? You don't get told that again. No. You don't get told that. You get given the supplements or the medication that support the brain's production of it, but it's like, but what's that person that's on those on that medication, which will probably have some benefit, maybe not. What are they feeding their gut? And the stuff, these products, it's I sound like I'm a homegrown.
You're an advocate.
Yeah, I am definitely.
100%.
It's because I put my body through a lot of like stress and, you know, let's say physical harm by what I do with these events, and knowing that I can support it with these products, it's calming to say
It's
the
really
least.
encouraging, and you know,
Yeah.
you and a lot of other people as well.
Yeah.
We are now changing our understanding about health and wellness.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah,
It's exciting.
yeah, it is.
It really is.
With in terms of, because I'm stacking like quite a lot. Like,
You said that you were doing Restore here.
Yes. I want to
That one there.
exactly. I want to talk
So-
about Restore.
Okay.
So please go.
A guy called Dr. John Pruden. Like if you go to the web and search Dr. John Pruden, I think he was in the 30s, 40s, sometime last century, looking at tracheal tissue. So the trachea is the windpipe of the cow. We enzymatically process our trachea because it's such a hard, like if you put your finger up to your throat, you can feel it. It feels bony. And when you look at the windpipe of a slaughtered animal, it's really it's cartilage. It's hard. And for us to get the benefits out of it, we use a process which naturally breaks it down before we freeze dry it, so that when it gets into our bodies, it's easily assimilated. So that's the process. John Pruden used the tracheal tissue for wound healing. He, and in the papers, if you go and read them, you'll find that he sprinkled the powder onto a wound and he saw it grow together before his eyes, which is amazing. So I quote him on our product page. It's a really interesting read if you want to go there. The difference between any other kind of collagen product and our collagen product is that most of the other collagens are hooves and hides. So that's gelatin, that's the breakdown of the skin and the hooves into a water-soluble powder. So then you can add it to and there's nothing wrong with it. You can add it to your drinks. And there was, 3 years ago, it was all the rage, collagen powder in coffee, because it was so beneficial, because it's so beneficial to our skin and our hair. And so it's type 1 and 3 collagen. There's lots of different types. Hooves and hides is type 1 and 3, which is specifically for the skin, for the hair. Tracheal tissue is type 2 collagen, which works on the internal liquid highway on the inside of the body. So that's your fascia. That's the membrane that sits around the muscles. That's ligaments and support for the mucosal layer and the joints. And that's the difference between our product. It's not water soluble. It's in a capsule. It's half broken down before it gets freeze dried. It's very easily assimilated in the gut. So it's great. It's great. And I've found I use it for my Achilles. I've got an old injury, and a while ago it popped up. Like, I'm pretty active. I run and dance, and my Achilles popped up a while ago, and I just, what am I going to do with this? I was pretty pissed off that I'd injured myself, and then I started taking Restore, and within a week the pain had gone and the swelling had gone down. So it's targeted support.
Yeah, after the
I love
Ironman, I don't even know if I said it on this episode. Maybe I did at the start, but I was having like 6 of them, 6 of these capsules on top of the stack I've already been having. And again, maybe because my diet's so clean, but my recovery has just been like, I bounced back so quick.
Isn't
Went
it
for a
great?
run yesterday, and I was like, wow.
That's really good.
So, yeah, but bottom line, like what we're getting to, because just for time, we can't go too much longer, but what we're getting to is just, and for speaking to you, is just, it's the whole foods, and now we've got this product where we can consume a nose-to-tail diet. And we're not saying, and I know that you're not saying, which I appreciate, is that we're not expecting you to become a carnivore or never have sugar again or bread. It doesn't work in that way, and I don't think it's sustainable. And I like how Paul Saladino talks about carnivore-ish The idea, or animal-based-ish, you could even say. I don't think he said that, but I'm saying that now, is that you don't have to go full bore, but just introducing these products bit by bit, little by little, that's where you're going to start to gain that vitality.
Yep. I think education, I've just reviewed Dr. Anthony Chaffee's book, Why Are We Carnivores?
Yes.
So he's a really strict carnivore.
Yeah.
He uses liver sparingly. He talks about plants are trying to kill us, and Saladino talks about that as well. So I encourage everyone to read, why are a lot of people allergic to, why people respond to gluten? Like, why have we got this predisposition for gut issues? And look at what we're eating, and maybe eliminate grains, seeds, legumes out of the diet and see what happens. You know, it doesn't mean you have to be completely carnivore. You can eat a little bit of fruit. You can have a bit of what else was I going to say?
Dairy.
Fruit and honey.
Bit of dairy even.
A little bit of dairy.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. But avoid the seeds.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah, this is true. So in that case, you want to, in conjunction with that, using your product, what would be your most ideal supplement?
I would just
for someone
go
to
with
start?
Boost.
Boost, yeah, cool.
Just with
that's
our
the
liver.
blue
I
one,
don't have
right?
it here. Yeah,
That's the blue. That's the one I use.
Yeah.
I always run out
so
of.
Thrive is the blue one. That's
Yeah.
the we call
Thrive
it
is
the
what
multi. That's got 5 different organs in it.
Which one's Boost?
Boost is the black one.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's just plain
Haven't
liver.
used it.
So I suggest if anyone's got an issue with their body that they want to address, if they've got joint pain or they've got menopause symptoms, or they're low in their testosterone, try using one of our products for that. But generally, you know, if you're having Thrive or Boost every day, and your good, healthy, ancestral diet, that's all you need.
Yeah, awesome. What's your favourite?
My favourite?
Yeah, out of your range.
Oh, Ignition's my favourite.
Yeah.
I think everyone needs to take Brain. I really do. Makes a huge difference.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And just quickly too, I see you've launched Hound, which is the
our
animal.
Homegrown Hounds product.
That's
Yeah.
so
We did that because a lot of people were opening capsules and giving them to their pets. So
Okay.
we just whipped up.
rad.
Yeah.
So it's same, but just
It's
now in
human
powder.
grade. Yeah, it's just
Cool.
exactly our
Oh,
product.
so I can just use it. That's something I've even done. I've put it in smoothies. I've opened the capsule,
Yeah.
but sometimes because it's so potent, it kind of bleeds in a bit, and I'm still not.
It's
at the
pretty
point.
strong.
It is.
We do. We call it the Omega Bone. So it's in the green pot. It's bone broth powder and bone collagen, 50-50.
Yeah,
so you can
wow.
add it to your stews if you wanted to.
You have that product available.
Yeah, it's Mega Bone. It's
cool.
in the Hound range.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, yeah, I'll add all your links. But if there's anything else like you feel that's necessary, you've already spoken to so much. But what would be some key points, or what would be something you'd want the listener to take away?
Yeah, I
from
think
this?
eat local. Eat
Yeah.
local. Have a look at what's grown in the garden, in the community. Is there a community garden? Is there fruit trees over your neighbour's fence that you could ask for? Don't eat sprayed food. Don't eat grains. Don't eat bread. Make it a treat if you need to treat yourselves.
Yeah, fair.
Fair.
Sourdough is something that I can tolerate.
Yeah, but don't
generally
do it every
organic.
day.
Yeah. No, I couldn't.
Have meat every day. Meat and butter.
Yeah.
Meat and butter.
Yeah.
My favourite foods.
Do you drink coffee?
A little bit.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was like, please let me drink coffee.
Dave Asprey's
Sure.
been really posting lately. Dave Asprey, the bullet coffee
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
He talks about
Mycotoxins,
how important coffee is. You need to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've given it up for Lent actually, and longest I've ever been without it in my life, and I've had no positive benefits of not having coffee.
No
So
positive benefits. No negative benefits.
Sorry. Yeah. No
Yeah.
negative benefits of
Yeah.
not having coffee. I haven't noticed my sleep hasn't changed, my mood hasn't changed. I haven't got any more anxiety. I'm not really anxious as it is, but all these, I'm like, oh, well, that tells me I'm a positive
Your body's
receiver of
using it.
caffeine.
Yeah. Your body's
Whereas some
using it
people, unfortunately, they can't. Their way their body responds to caffeine is extremely detrimental. So fortunately, I'm not one of them.
A lot of it increases adrenaline response.
Yes, exactly.
So tell me about Lent. You said you'd given it up for Lent.
Yeah.
So that's a commitment.
Yeah, it was a commitment that I felt I needed to make, and I've actually, you brought up Christianity. I actually, last year I joined a men's group, and a big part of that was, I wouldn't say Christian faith per se, but the principles and the philosophies and the teachings within Christian faith. And I got down on my knees and started, I don't expect to be talking about this, got down on my knees and started praying. I just started bawling my eyes out.
Wow.
I'd never felt that sort of surrender, and that sort of, it was almost a love. And I just went down the rabbit hole, so to say, of just devoting myself more further and further into Christ and his teachings. And I've sort of just been like, my whole life I've been seeking, and I've found so much solace. And that's also not to say that in Buddha's teachings and the spirituality, that whole theme, which I think true faith is spiritual.
Yeah, absolutely.
Religion itself is convoluted and messy, and man has got involved. But when you get to the depth of the message, anyway, a part of that with Lent, I was like, okay, if I'm this more devoted, why not follow these traditions and learn more about it? And I've still got to learn more about it.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, I'm going to give up something that is literally part of my life, which is coffee, and I love it. I must admit, smelling it, I'm like, damn, I would, And so I just thought
It's kind of like fasting.
Yeah, in a way.
Isn't it? Fasting.
which is something I do often as well.
So I think, if you look at the whole animal, as we are whole animals, we are body, emotions, and soul and spirit. My understanding of us as we move through our lives, we grow spiritually as we age, and for me, walking into my eldership, that makes up me as a person. That's sort of fulfilling my destiny almost. It's like, yes, I am a spiritual being, and what do I believe? And yes, I am soulful, and how do I relate to other people? And yes, I am in a physical body, and I've got emotions, and that makes me up. So that's wholeness for me. Yeah, and spirituality is part of it.
Beautiful.
Yay.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, Janet, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Raving your product, so I'm not going to say any more. We've been talking about it for the last hour and a half, or however long it's been. So buy
really quickly.
Buy it. Give it a go. I'll share all the links via all the link stuff on the podcast.
I really appreciate you taking time and
it's mutual.
Sitting with me and talking. I find that there's a lot of commonalities with people who use our products. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It is interesting. So not much more to be said. So thank you so much, and beautiful. Thank you.